Hi there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What the Flock. And today we have Ashleigh Freckleton coming at you from Australia.
Down under.
Hi, Ashleigh.
Hey, Ashleigh.
Hey, guys. Hey, it's so nice to be here and so great to finally meet you both.
Yeah. Now, exactly what town are you in again? Maybe walk us through where you're at in Australia.
It's called Horsham. So it's sort of a midway point between Adelaide and Melbourne. So down south. Hang on. I'm so bad with my north-south. Southeast Australia, in Victoria. If you know the States, it's in Victoria.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Nice.
So it's a country town out in the sticks. It's not really in the sticks, but it's pretty rural.
I love it. Well, we get to enjoy your accent for the next couple episodes here, which I told Hoyt I was a little jealous of. So I had the pleasure of talking to you yesterday and got to hear your lovely accent and get to know you a little bit. But you probably think we have an accent, right?
Of course you have an accent. Yeah. I don't have one. You guys do.
That's right.
Exactly. Well, I'm
thing with the American accent, you guys actually say your R's, your sounds, whereas we just use a vowel. We just say ah. We're lazy.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Almost a little Bostonian in that regard.
Yeah.
But yes. Did that trigger something? Were you going to say something?
Yeah, just that the Boston accent are notorious for their saying car instead of car.
Yeah, park the car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we said that at the same time. Okay, Ashleigh. Well, I'm so excited to share you with our audience. Like I said, we got to chat yesterday. And Hoyt's going to officially introduce you in a second. But I'm going to start with our quote of the day. You ready?
Ooh, yeah.
All right. There is only one way to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. And that's by Aristotle. So on that note, I'll pass it.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. Okay,
Who's that guy? No, that's great, Chele. I love that.
Right? Made me think of you, Ashleigh. So there you go.
So here,
Thank you
let me properly introduce you now, Ashleigh. So Ashleigh Freckleton is a speech language pathologist and an ex-cultie who created the Instagram page Cultivate Awareness, which is how I found Ashleigh. So guys who think that social media doesn't work, it works. And, on that page, she creates infographics and thought-provoking images to raise awareness of cult dynamics, psychological abuse, and coercive control. Currently, she is studying psychology through Monash. Am I saying that correctly? Monash University in Australia?
Monash, yeah.
Monash, okay. And is driven by her mission to broaden public understanding of the psychology of cults and coercive control. Ashleigh hopes to raise awareness about cultic groups and the tactics they use to pull people into joining. She is always guided by her modus operandi: prevent harm and help heal. Welcome to the show, Ashleigh.
Yay!
Crowds going crazy. So this is exciting. I saw your stuff on Instagram, and I immediately got captivated by some of the ideas and concepts you were throwing out there. And I said, God, I would love to find out more about you. And then, of course, I did a little research, and I reached out to you, and I'm so glad you're here now. As I always say, us cult survivors need to stick together. Mm-hmm. We're a growing community, and it's just nice to kind of meet someone down in your part of the world. We haven't had anyone from Australia yet. So
no.
Really? First time.
You're the first.
We're popping our cherry right now
with Australia.
Nice.
So
nice. Love being the first.
Ashleigh, share what you shared the other day or yesterday about you were mentioning the podcast to someone, and they said they were listening. I wanted you to share that with Hoyt.
Yes. So I was out for dinner with some medical students. Long story how that happened, but I hadn't met them before. So it was the first time I'd met them, and I mentioned the podcast to them, and there's like, oh, what's it called? And I said, WhaTheFlok. And then she said, oh, I listened to that. I really enjoy that podcast. I listen to it on Spotify. I was like, no way. So you guys have a pretty big reach.
Oh, well, good. I'm happy to hear that. That is a nice little thing to hear.
Super encouraging.
So along the lines of that, where we generally love to start the story is kind of setting up the scene of where you were kind of in your life when all this started to unfold. It's kind of the idea that we talk about the perfect storm. You know, I think people don't really understand how these things happen, and it really helps to kind of say, you know, kind of who you are and then where you were in your life at that time, and how this kind of came in to kind of remedy kind of where, you know, some things that you were possibly looking for or whatever. I mean, I know you had mentioned some things in some of your articles, kind of you had moved to a new city and things like that. So just kind of let us kind of hear a little about who you are, and then where this all kind of started at that point, at what point in your life.
Well, and maybe with the caveat, give us a little, maybe set the framework for what you can and cannot share, with an overview of why there's certain things you're not able to share at this point. Later you can, but not right now.
Sure. Perfect. I really love this analogy of the perfect storm, because that's really what it is, isn't it? That's something I've talked about in some of my posts about. There's no personality profile for a cult recruit, because at some point in their life, everybody would fit the profile. There's just this massive misunderstanding that people are stupid or
weak, gullible,
you know, lack intelligence or weak or that sort of thing. And it's not that at all. It's actually the perfect storm. You create the perfect set of circumstances, and anybody could fall victim to these tactics. And that's exactly what happened with me. I mean, I fit the profile of a person who, I mean, the personality traits that might make me more vulnerable to that was that I have a high openness to experience. I'm very open-minded and I love to try new things. And I'd quit my job in Australia, moved overseas to do the very popular thing here in Australia, the 2-year working holiday, the youth mobility scheme visa.
Nice.
So I went over there to do my 2-year stint, and in that process, I was in a breakup of a relationship. So I had to break up with my boyfriend at the time to actually do that. So I was grieving that loss as well as embracing the new opportunities and what was to come. And I was in a new city. I didn't know anybody. I actually got a job not in London, quite far out, about an hour out of London. So I didn't really have a social network around me. I was going through a huge transition in my life, which is that key thing that, is it Margaret Singer that talks about the life blip, this kind of developmentally normal crisis or life transition sort of phase. And I have always been a very deeply spiritual person. It's something that I've explored and taken deep dives into, especially when I was at university. But a lot of the stuff that I was diving into was a lot of the kind of new agey sort of stuff. I was learning a lot about the chakra system and but then also like the sciencey side of things. I was learning a lot about meditation, a lot about mindfulness. I just downloaded the Calm app and I was really taking a deep dive into mindfulness practices.
Okay, great.
Really getting on the yoga bandwagon. I'm a dancer, so I love movement. Movement is very calming for me, very cathartic. So I loved yoga so much. And part of me misses yoga and the other part of me is like, I just can't do it right now.
Yeah.
And I had this pull of like, I need to know more. I want to know more. I felt like I was on this kind of spiritual journey and I kept having these breakthroughs and new understandings. I was reading Eckhart. I don't know how to say Tolle. Is it Tolle? Tolle.
Tolle.
Some say Tolle, some say Tolle.
Right.
His book, I was reading through that, The Power of Now, and having a lot of spiritual conversations, especially with my dad. He's very much on the same wavelength with me, so I was able to have a lot of talks to him about it, but I didn't have really any friends that were quite as invested in a spiritual journey as I was, so I wasn't there weren't a lot of people that I could have these conversations with, or anyone really. And
right.
it was quite a source of friction in my previous relationship, actually, because I would want to talk about, these
deep
books
things
that I'd read about, near-death experiences, and that were written by, there was a book written by a man who used to be an anaesthetist, and he started writing this book about near-death experiences after he had one. And I was really interested in numerology, and he just wasn't into it. It just didn't resonate with him. And he had a very, I have a lot more of a skeptical mindset around things as well. He had probably a healthy degree of skepticism, or a high degree at least. So we would have a lot of arguments over that. And I felt very unseen. I felt very kind of disregarded, that, oh, you think that I'm stupid and you don't believe in any of this stuff. And I was seeking people that would kind of get me and understand and have that interest as well. But then I forgot this caveat that we were talking about, Chele. So I can't share the name of the organization today. That will stay under wraps.
Yep.
But there's various reasons for that. One of them being they're pretty adamant that they will take legal action against anyone that tries to speak out against them, and they have done in the past. So for your protection, guys, I mean, I feel like if you want to try and put a lawsuit on me as a first-hand victim, I'd love to see them try, but I would just hate for them to kind of come after you as the kind of the broadcasting platform. Who knows how these things happen, but give it time. I will be able to talk about it a lot.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Time for
stay tuned, right? Stay tuned.
Watch this space. I feel like I will be able to talk about them specifically at some point. There's lots of things going on in the background. I'm working on various different projects with different networks, and I'm really invested in this journey of wanting to prevent harm, first of all, and help heal for those that have already been harmed. And part of that preventing harm is to raise awareness of who this organization is and to stop the abuse in its tracks, because I cannot sit on my hands and do nothing. I can't. And a lot of people have said that to me as well. They're just kind of like, I think people are kind of waiting for me to kind of move on. They're like, oh, maybe after you've finished, all these different things that you're doing, then you'll finally be able to move on. And it's like, oh, people are kind of thinking I need to get over this. They're kind of like, can you move on now? And I can't move on. Right. Until I know I've done everything in my power.
I know exactly.
Stop it.
My family, I think, keeps looking at me that same way. Like, when are you going to get past all this cult stuff? I'm like,
never.
I think not unlike like you're describing, you almost feel a duty and a compulsion to tell the tale, because why go through it and then keep these insights just to yourself? It just doesn't make sense to me. So.
Exactly. And it makes meaning out of something that seems so senseless.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. That's it. There's method to the madness.
Right. And with what you're doing, hopefully, which I believe you will, inhibiting them from doing it to other people in the future.
Exactly.
There is that duty there of, using your voice to hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, both you and Chele are in these camps where the group still exists.
Correct.
I'm lucky that our group was smaller, and I was able to help facilitate taking that down. So I can certainly empathize with that desire for that group to stop doing harm.
And Hoyt, also, you tackled it legally, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, which is very similar. So he did tackle it legally.
And I would love to go down that avenue one way or another someday. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
You never know.
Absolutely, yeah.
You never know. Okay, so pick up where you were. So
so I was living in a town called Sittingbourne, which is on the east, north, south, east, west. Never eat soggy wheat bix. Is that the analogy you guys use to remember?
Okay, go ahead.
I was on the sorry.
I love it.
That's adorable. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was living on the East Coast in a town, and I was working as a speech and language therapist, as they're called there. Had a wonderful job, really loved the job that I was doing. And I had to come back to Australia for my brother's wedding, which I was really excited about. And I thought, well, before I do that, I will do a big travel in Europe. And then how cool if I maybe go for a month to India and just meditate and practice yoga and just be fully invested in this kind of spiritual yogic journey. Imagine the personal growth and the insights I'll get, and I'll just be so much of a better person, you know?
Sure.
I was thinking that's what I want to do. And I was talking about it, and it was fixated in my mind. That's what I was going to do. And I was talking about it to family members, and my brother actually said a few times, "Oh, why don't you reach out to my friends? They're really into yoga and that sort of thing. They've been to India." And I sort of was like, "Oh yeah, cool, but I won't do that." And then it came up again, and it sort of, you mentioned these people again, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I will then." And then later on it came up again. So I messaged these friends that are sort of family friends. Like we come from a small town, so everyone's lives kind of cross and intermingle. It's really cool. It's definitely a different dynamic. Like everyone knows everyone.
Right.
Gotcha.
So family friend, but also my brother's friends, if that makes sense.
And Ash, how old were you at this time?
25.
Okay.
Oh, was I 25? Was I 24? I think I was 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mid-20s.
Yeah, it was my quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
I was ready. I just made sure it was a really big one.
And as most of these things are, starting with the best of intentions, right?
Yep.
Exactly. The best of intentions. You know, you're reading these books about the world, you know, awakening and raising to a higher awareness. And, you know, it's your duty to jump on the bandwagon and support the cause, you know, help people wake up, be a, inverted commas, light worker, you know, like, I was like, that's me. I see 11/11 all the time. You know, that's me.
Yeah.
And
11/11.
I feel so cool. Yeah. And I messaged the same message to 2 people. And it was the same. I literally cut and pasted the name out, like swapped the names out and sent them the same message. And unbeknownst to me, both of them were in the cult. And they were kind of devoting their lives to supporting the organization. They're actually doing a lot for them in terms of like building structures for them and really invested. One of them came back to me and said, came back to me quite quickly and said, "Here's a bunch of places you can go in India. You know, go to Dharamshala, and there's this place and that place. I recommend doing this." All these recommendations at me. I was like, "Cool, thanks for the insights." The other one didn't reply for about a month or so. But when he did, he was like, "Why do you want to practice yoga? What is yoga? What is the meaning of life?" And I was like, "Ooh, well, now that you've asked," I got thinking about it. And then we got talking, and from there it just snowballed. And it was the first person that I had met that I felt so understood, and I felt so seen, especially because I've grown up, I was raised Catholic. So I was raised going to church every single Sunday.
Right.
And even though it is really common in cults for somebody to have, I think, rejected religion in some way. And I definitely I wouldn't say I rejected religion, but there was a lot of things that didn't really resonate with me,
right?
Especially after I'd been on a trip to Spain and I'd seen all of learnt about the history and everything.
Yeah.
So, and I was really especially drawn to this idea of reincarnation, which is not part of Catholic theology.
No, it's not.
You know, especially
it used to be, but they got rid of it.
They got rid of it
back in the day. Yeah.
Did they?
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
that's a whole nother chapter. Yeah, the Council of Nicaea back in I think the 500s. They eliminated reincarnation from the Bible. Yeah,
that's a whole podcast series right there.
Watch out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, if you have multiple lifetimes, you can't control someone very well. But if you only have one,
right?
And here are the rules. A lot
more at stake.
And either you follow the rules or you're going to hell. Right? Pretty good system.
One chance.
Pretty good system.
One shot.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So there were things like that where I was so drawn to this idea of reincarnation, and it didn't fit the mold of what I was being taught, and very open to ideas. But anyway, but I also am very comfortable with the word God. And, you know, I would meet so many people that would say, "I don't believe in God." And I'd say, "Don't you?" And then we'd have these conversations and they'd talk about, "Oh, I believe in like a higher intelligence, or I believe that there's like an order to the universe." And I was like, "So who's the order? Who makes the order?" And they're like, "The universe." And I was like, "Gotcha, that's God, same thing." But like people were so uncomfortable with that word, right? People don't want to say the word. And when you talk to people, you realize that they might actually have a concept of God, but they just don't call it that. They recontextualize it to something else, which is fine. But at the time I didn't really understand that so well. But this guy, he was really comfortable with the word God, and because the cult was kind of a syncretic blend of like Hinduism, Buddhism, and then because of their roots of where it came from, also I think it was Catholicism, definitely Christianity. There was a really heavy Christian influence there. So he would talk about God while also talking about reincarnation, while also talking about Jesus. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the first person I've ever met who just gets me,
it.
Like it just, yeah. And I just felt so seen. And he really took the time with me as well. Like we talked for hours and hours about these topics that I didn't feel like I could talk to with anyone. And he'd sort of give me books to read, and don't know whether he did this intentionally or not, but no conversations were ever left finished. There was always a conversation was always left as like, we'll get back to that, or that's for next time, or there'd sort of be like a cliffhanger, or like, read this and come back to me, or so I was like always coming back. It's
like an episode of 24. It's always a cliffhanger.
Always like,
Okay.
Yeah, and I always felt like that. I was like, did he do that on purpose? Like, we're definitely leaving this on a cliffhanger. Like, he's left me a book to read or a video to watch and come back to him with a review, or like, it just never, it just always felt like the book was left open to come back to. And when we would talk, we talk for hours, and I'd just leave those conversations feeling so invigorated and just really seen and understood. And, it was hard for me to find that. So eventually I found out that when I wanted to go to India was monsoon season, so it wasn't a good time to go. And I mentioned this to him, and he was sort of like, in a knowing sort of way, he was like, perfect. There's a festival in August. Come here instead. Come to Romania. And I was like, it's perfect. It's meant to be. That's why. This is it. I'm meant to be going here.
Right.
And so I can be impulsive, but when I know what I want to do, I just go ahead and I do it. So I booked it. I was like, yep, I'm coming. I'm coming to Romania. And he said, this is going to have everything that you're looking for and more. And he's like, it's not like, they've commercialized, the Western society has commercialized yoga. It's just hot pants and lycra. This is the real thing. This is
Did
the
you
real
say
yoga.
Hot pants and lycra?
Yeah.
God, I love you, Ashleigh. That's awesome. Okay, go ahead.
I'm fairly sure that's like were his exact words. And
that's hilarious.
And like here I was like going to like my like body balance classes like next door at my gym and being like, I'm really enjoying this, but I know I'm not supposed to because it's Western commercialized, but it's really nice and I love it.
How dare you? How dare you enjoy that?
I know. How dare I enjoy this blend of Tai Chi and Pilates and Vinyasa.
Oh, gosh.
But he's like, this will be the real thing. And so I started taking online classes. And these were like 2-hour classes because this cult is huge. They have tentacles all over Europe, North and South America, Asia.
Wow.
They did at one point have a school in Australia. I don't think they do anymore. They have kind of pop-up schools, I think, too. Like in India, they have pop-up schools in that, kind of busy season in Rishikesh where all the vulnerable people are wandering past. And then, serendipity, they find this place, which is exactly what happened to to that friend, I think, actually. I think he was traveling and he stumbled across the group.
Wait, how many people would you guesstimate either were in the group or are still in the group?
I don't know where I'm pulling this figure from, and I could be totally wrong, but I'm sure I saw somewhere 40,000.
Okay.
I think you're right, because I did a little research, and it's right around that number. I was just curious if that's what you thought as well.
Yeah, I think my head keeps thinking 40,000, but I don't know where I pulled that from. Which is huge.
That's huge.
Right?
In any regard, anything close to that is huge and disturbing. But go ahead.
Yeah. And to think that they're still just operating, working their operation, doing what they're doing. And because, 40,000 people, that's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Into the organization, which means very elaborate smoke screens.
And but to your point, which you mentioned earlier, they're very litigious, because I did look on the website that you shared with me, and there's a warning on their website that if you say anything negative about them, they will come after you.
Wow.
So subtle. They're so subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So subtle.
So subtle.
And the one, like the school that I went to in the UK, registered charity with the Royal Charity Commission.
Turns my stomach. It turns my stomach. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it's just mind-boggling, right? You think of it and you're just like, how is this happening? How has no one stopped this yet? But there's so many reasons why, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
So
TikTok,
where was I up to?
TikTok, as far as I'm concerned.
Where was I up to?
You were up to the, your friend had stumbled.
You have to go to this
festival.
Festival in Romania.
Festival.
Yeah.
Festival in Romania. Yeah. So I was taking classes online and I was like, some of this stuff seems a little bit weird. But then I would research it and it'd be kind of like related to practices related to yoga and stuff. And I thought, oh, no, it'll be all right. I'm just being paranoid. I told myself I was being paranoid. Like they teach you like quite early on the practice of, I don't know if I can remember the word right, Vamana Dauti, which is like where you drink a heap of water and then vomit it.
Oh, jeez.
No, I don't know that.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So initially it's like, well, this could be potentially damaging for people that have eating disorders and that sort of thing. But then I was like, oh, this is really not for me. I really don't fancy vomiting. Like when I vomit, I cry. Like I literally cry. And like, that's an emotional release. That's healthy. And I was like, I think I'm crying because I just hate vomiting.
It could be that. It could be that simple.
Yeah. But I was reading about it. So then I did a deep dive, reading about it, and it is a I guess on some level legitimized practice in India and part of I think it's some sort of yogic lineage or something like that. So there was some things that the readings, there was sometimes things in there that I thought were a bit weird, but I was like, no, you need to be committed to this. And even while I was traveling, I would, be in the Greek islands, and I would, instead of going out for dinner with my friend, I'd be like, I've got to go back to my yoga class. Like, I'm just going to head back to my yoga class for 2 hours, and then I'll come meet you and we'll go out and party, which I wasn't really enjoying partying because my mind felt guilty for it because I was meant to be, spiritual. And I knew that in the school, I'd probably eventually have to give up drinking. And I was like, I'm just not ready for that yet. But, and I felt really guilty.
Right.
And
so were they positioning themselves kind of as like the serious yoga program compared to everyone else? Like they were going back to the roots of it all. Like I know it's a very typical cultic thing of like, we've cracked the code. This is the real deal.
Everyone else is fake and not authentic,
So did it have kind of that sort of tone?
Definitely. There was definitely a sense of superiority, bit of a superiority complex there. Yeah. Like we've got, and there's other schools and they were adamant, no, you can find things other places. Is that even a word? Other places. You can find things in other places, but this place has everything. This place has all. This is just a never ending. This is Pandora's box, there's just everything you could possibly hope for. They have it here. They have Ayurveda, like Ayurvedic medicine, yoga, meditation, Christian influences, Hindu, Buddhist influence. Although they were quite, there was in these propaganda books they put out, they actually said that they put themselves above Buddhism. They actually said that the Buddha was incomplete and the Buddha missed a step, but their guru got the step that the Buddha missed.
Of course he did.
Oh, so that's interesting. So they were positioning the guru as he's the one that's kind of created all of this, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very much like on the same level as Jesus is the impression I got. And Jesus had his place in the cult because it had Christian influences, but I would 100% think that that this guru is put on the same level.
Right. Yeah.
And whenever you talk about, but he's had some run-ins with the law and, kind of wanted person.
He's being persecuted by the world because they're not ready to hear what he has to say, right?
Yeah. Anyone who, why are they so afraid of him? They say, obviously they're so terrified of him because he holds the truth. And look what happened to Jesus.
Of course.
Look what happened to Jesus.
Oh, yes.
And
familiar territory.
When you're reading a lot of New Age literature and even the good stuff, it does say if you start to evolve and grow and develop, you will have to leave people behind and people will crucify you for it. So it all checks out. You go, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I remember another one that I read was when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Right. Emerges.
And that's also
that exact quote.
Very dangerous to hear, right? I mean, you're like, oh, this is it. This is it. Yeah. So I
remember that guy saying that to me. Yeah. And at the time I was like, the teacher's appeared.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there. I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's so similar. In all of our groups.
All the same thing.
So you get to Romania, right? Is that have you started doing the classes? I mean, where are you at this point?
Yeah, I was doing the online classes, and then I got to Romania, and there was I got invited to stay in this kind of exclusive women's ashram because they can separate the men and the women under the guise of tantra. And that was the other thing too. Like some people were looking for tantra or tantric yoga. Mm-hmm. I was not. I just wanted yoga. Right. And I would often say to people, I was like, I didn't go looking for tantra. Tantra found me. I didn't want anything to do with it. I just wanted to practice yoga. But
now for the audience's sake, how would you define tantra as what they were pitching?
Tantra is about love, they would say. And they'd say people immediately hear the word tantra and they think about sex. And like, that's not what tantra is about. And they're like, tantra is about love and it's about integrating the masculine and the feminine. Mm-hmm. It's a spiritual path. They talked about, like, I think they say they practice like the white tantra or something like that. And they don't even use the word sex. Like, it's like a bit taboo. Like there's only love making. Right. And it's all about opening your heart and living presently and living in the moment and falling in love with life kind of thing. That's how they pitch it.
Although on the website now it uses the word eroticism with tantra, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, there is. I guess there definitely is. But people go looking for that, right? There are people that are seeking that.
Well, they're using that to draw the people in that are interested in that, like you said, that are seeking it. So that's just it's a fishing word for them. Ooh, we have eroticism here. Oh, let me check that out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What's it called? Sacred sexuality.
Right.
And people are really drawn to that. I personally wasn't. I was just looking for the yoga because I have a history of depression and anxiety and I didn't want to be on my medication anymore. And so I'd stopped taking my medication, which was another vulnerability there, I guess, because it's sort of been told, like, you probably need to be on it for the rest of your life. I'm like, I don't want to be. I want to be natural.
Right, so sure.
I had come off the medication and they kind of promote that too. Like, you don't want to be taking medications. You need to be natural. And I've gone off on a tangent. I can't remember what I was saying now.
No, but you've gotten to Romania. How long was your commitment to be in Romania? Like, was it for a month that you were saying?
It was a month.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a month. Yeah. So I ended up in this secret women's ashram that's meant to kind of teach you how to become a woman, step into your womanhood, become Shakti, embody Shakti and be this incredible, powerful, feminine force, energy, whatever.
Right.
And it's all secret. You don't know what you're getting into until you get in there. Yeah. And get there and you take vows on the Bible, and the vows are like on your health and your spiritual evolution, that you would never share anything that happens there. Full fear mongering, like just instilling all this fear in you.
Yeah.
And you read all of that out. And also just to like preface this by saying I'd quit my job at this point. So I didn't have a job. I had booked flights for a month's time. Just lost my earbud. Yes, I'd booked flights for a month's time.
Right.
I didn't have a job. So I couldn't just leave, if that makes sense. And I was on a spiritual, journey as well. So I couldn't just leave.
Right. Makes total sense.
I did all of those vows and things like that. And they're like, okay, cool. So now take your clothes off and we'll have to get photos of you so that he can read your aura. And I was like, okay.
Hold up. What?
And then they give you like this kind of pages, like, and if you have a problem with nudity, here's all of this kind of old literature on like nudity. And if you have a problem with it, it's kind of your problem.
It's your problem.
You should probably reconsidering whether you belong here if you have a problem with nudity. Like you shouldn't.
Right.
It's basically kind of low-key threatening to kick you out.
Right.
Sure.
And I couldn't afford to be kicked out because by being there, I was getting the camp for free, which I was saving hundreds of euros. I was getting free accommodation. I was getting free food. So I was saving a lot of money by being there. And I was like, I can't just leave. Also, because it was like 10 o'clock at night. Right. I can't just leave.
Right. Right. Oh, I get it, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and there's the understanding that everyone else has done this, right? I mean that this is just what everybody does. So the peer pressure element's massive.
And if you're truly spiritual, shouldn't bother you, right? What's your problem?
Exactly.
You're not your body. You're
ego.
Spirit. You're not your body. It's just your ego. Yeah. I know.
And
it's
your
these tactics.
problem.
Yeah.
And it's your ego.
Yeah.
You need to. If you have a problem with it, it's because it's your ego. You need to kind of keep going higher.
Oh, yes.
So I stripped all my clothes off. They photographed me, front on, side on, like turn around, like, you're just standing there feeling extremely vulnerable. But you're like, it's okay. I'm evolving. I'm getting better.
Right.
Even though your body is going, this is not right. I don't feel good about this. But then your mind there's a disjoint there, and they are like kind of teaching you these thought suppression strategies, surrender.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they give you kind of pages that you have to read 3 times of rules and kind of things. I can't even remember them. It was late at night. But then also not just the photos, then you have to get videos as well. So they said they're doing the filming at 8 o'clock in the morning and all the girls line up and you have to go into a room and they get you to do some weird machine where like this thing turns and you got to put your hands over it. I don't know what it is. But it's meant to read your energy. And so for some reason you have to be naked for that. So you sit there and they film you using it.
Of course you do. Would make no sense if you weren't, right?
Wow.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because he has to be able to read your aura was their reason. He needs to be able to read your aura. And I was like, if he was super evolved and not actually a human because he's a master, wouldn't he be able to read my aura?
Right. With your clothes on.
But critical thinking isn't working too well at that point, is it? No.
Yeah. And also, I couldn't leave. I didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, and then like you sort of have to like do a spin. Like I think you have to turn like 3 times one way, 3 times the other way. And then they are giving you a microphone and you have to say like your name and your date of birth and where you're from, like all your identifying information, as well as the ever important star sign and your ascendant, because huge astrology influence.
My group too. That was a big I
did read that, Hoyt. I was like, yep, us too. And
So that
they
was.
didn't. I remember.
So what's interesting?
Yeah, go on.
So you were there for a month, or you stayed longer? How much longer did you stay there?
I was there for a month. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
I think one of the things that we always try to talk about is there's plenty of weird stuff going on for sure, and whenever we tell these stories, because you're using the word cult, we all know crazy weird stuff happens, but there's also good things happening, and I think it's always important to offset the picture for the audience that it's just not weird stuff. There's other good things happening, which does keep you hanging in, right? I mean, I read one of the quotes that you had said that you felt split in two, and I think that's a lot of what people don't realize, that there's a real push and pull that goes on, and there's things that are drawing you to it, and there are things that are making you uncomfortable, but that's a real inner battle that's happening. So I think it's helpful to tell the audience some of the things that were going that you liked and kept you kind of there to some extent and hopeful that somehow this is going to work out.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Hoyt, because there were draw cards there, but I think I was already feeling extremely extremely vulnerable at this point, and there was a lot that I was feeling uncomfortable with. There were good things, but I think the good things were probably more outweighed by the fear at this point. I was afraid that leaving would be deviating or abandoning the spiritual path. And that was more terrifying to me than persisting through it and trying to kind of push through the ego. So when you think about like positive reinforcement in terms of like chasing the carrot, chasing the reward and the positive things and being positively reinforced with good, it definitely at this point had started to shift to more of a negative reinforcement of avoiding something negative by leaving. I was afraid to leave. That makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so
I know that very well.
It's completely,
that's part of my 20-year journey. I was terrified to leave. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Same here. Almost identical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I felt like reality had been pulled out from underneath. I mean, we're not even like halfway there to the real kind of breaking point for me. But like even at this point, I was sort of thinking, what's real? Who can I trust? You know, can I trust myself? I don't know if I can. Can I trust this friend? I think I can. Can I trust all my, mainstream friends and family? No, I can't trust them.
Right.
I couldn't trust anyone. And I didn't want to leave the spiritual path. Yeah.
No, I think the analogy of the Matrix works well. These times, I certainly know it. And the Matrix wasn't out when I was in the group, but when I reflected back on it, it was really, I felt like they had pulled me out of the Matrix, and that anything I associated with my former life was the problem. So this is the inner battle you go through of. Like you were saying, I think the most damaging part is when you don't feel safe trusting your own thoughts. I mean, that's a really, really awful place to be in,
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah, and I exactly the same. I think that analogy. You know what? The friend that pulled me into the cult used the Matrix. He used the Matrix analogy. He encouraged me to watch the Matrix, as part of my spiritual practice.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
100%. That's what it was like.
Surprise. We watched it at our group, had it up on the big screen, had thousands of people watching The Matrix.
Yeah. I don't think the Matrix knew how much they were doing to awaken those who were out and then reinforce the people who were in. So it's a double-edged sword. We thankful to those Matrix people, but boy, that thing has been used for good and evil, both and both.
Good and evil. Yeah, it was like used to decondition and then quick recondition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now we're coming up. We're coming up to the some of the exciting stuff, right?
Exciting. Very exciting.
Exciting as far as like moving towards your freedom. But I think we're going to speaking of cliffhangers, I think we're going to leave that for the next episode because we've only got a few more minutes left here. So why don't we leave the audience wanting to know.
What happened?
Such a mean trick. Yeah. I feel terrible doing this. Now I feel really bad.
Oh yeah, it's this is listen, we know people's attention spans are only so long, so we try to give them some morsels, and then we'll give them the dessert when they tune back in for the next episode.
But in saying that, I can like rationalize it to myself by saying the message is important, so I need to keep you hooked because. The message is important. There's a purpose.
Yes, exactly right. That's
a great point. Okay, so Ashleigh, I will bookend this with our quote of the day, and then we'll come back with part 2. Okay. There is only one way to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. Aristotle. And I have to tell you, Ashleigh, I can't wait to finish out our talk here, but I'm so grateful, and I know Hoyt is. I'm so enjoying speaking with you, and I'm just so thrilled that you are one of those people that's willing to do something and not be one of the, nothing doers, and that you're taking what you've been through and what you've learned, and you're turning it into something that can help so many people. So I applaud you. You are amazing, and I can't wait to come back. So stay tuned, everyone.
That's right. Keep making the lemonade.
Keep making the lemonade out of
those lemons.
Out of those lemons.
All right. We'll see everybody for the next episode.
See you next time.
And another episode of
What the Flock.